Vlad, just to check, do you hear any noise in the background?
Not really.
Okay, all right.
So we're online. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Vladimir. Life is beautiful and amazing. And NAFTA College continues a series of online webinars on different aspects of petroleum engineering. I'm happy to say that our webinars turned really global. We have people joining from all across the world now. It's 7 a.m. here in Moscow. It's 8 in Dubai, 11 in Jakarta. I think it's noon in Kuala Lumpur. And it's 11 p.m. in Texas, USA, where our today's speaker currently resides. Now, before we start, let me guide you shortly through the logistics of this webinar. We have 1 hour. And as usual, if you have any questions, please, you're welcome to ask. There's a chat on your YouTube page. And we will go to the Q&A section after the main part of the webinar. There's also a forum on NAFTA College site, and we may continue discussing our topic there offline later. The video will be saved, and you may watch it later or share with your colleagues who can't join us today. So, without further ado, I want you to meet our speaker, Mr. Jamal Barghouti. He's a tremendously experienced petroleum engineer with a large baggage of successful, complicated projects, and I'm happy to say it, he's a NAFTA College professor. So today's topic is mastering your skills, and Mr. Jamal will share his view on complexity and importance of planning oilfield development, and introduce us to a modern tool to plan the FDP, which is PetroCup. So, Jamal, thank you very much for joining our team, online webinar team. And I think I'll just pass it on to you. Please, you may share your screen, and good luck with your part of the webinar.
Thank you, Vlad. Here we go. Okay, please confirm that you are seeing the screen. Vlad?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Maybe it takes a little bit of time.
Oh, it's okay.
Is it on?
Not yet. I think you might need to share your screen. Right?
Again?
Probably yes, because I can see it.
Okay, okay. All right.
Yes, now it's working.
Good.
Yes, we see your screen.
I see. All right. You see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here with you. It's an honor and a privilege to share this new technology with everybody. The 3 major points that I would be discussing, the highlight of the major problems that typical oil field development you will encounter, And what is in it for you from this presentation by the use of the new technology provided by NAFTA College that has been made available only lately because of the advances in technology, computers, clouds, computing, and mathematics. And the key words are really mastering your skills and the practice to make perfect and the learning that you're going to take away from this presentation. This is a picture of an oil field, a typical oil field that I worked on. It's the Fatih field offshore Dubai. And the lines that look like faults, those were really discovered much later in the game. That means when the field was discovered, they had no idea of how it looks like at 10, 15,000 feet underground. This is the Mishrif Reservoir. You can see the hole in the middle. It's like a big donut. And it was discovered in 1961, 1963, and it was in production 1967. And when I joined the group left Hobbs, New Mexico, and went to Dubai, that was 1980. And my task was to work in the oil field that was just starting to go under waterflood. Eventually, when the field was on full scale, that was 1 million barrels of water injected in the field. There are 47 platforms. There are about 150 wells between producers and injectors. And the problems started with water breakthroughs. They didn't know. They had the share timing. Ponca City in Oklahoma, they were building the model, and it takes weeks to finish it off. And by the time they do the history match, things have changed tremendously and they have to start over. That's one of the major things, that there's no immediate feedback at the time. And every time between reservoir model runs, things have changed, and they kept updating and history matching with so much difficulty. And a typical picture, this is not the same field, but this is trying to illustrate that at some point in time, when the water injection starts really getting poor returns or diminishing returns, you inject more water, you will produce more fluid, and the oil keeps going down. And it's just like automatic washing machine. And this is a typical problem, whether it's a green field or a mature field, and not knowing the parameters that you're playing with and the data, and the lack of immediate feedback will put you back always is trying to catch up with these problems. This is just another typical secondary recovery. That's one of the major CO2 projects in the world, Denver Unit Production, West Texas. As you can see, the water injection matured, water broke through, and then they resorted to the CO2 injection. Just imagine yourself a production engineer, a reservoir engineer, trying to manage this project and where the CO2 is going, what is the efficiency, what's the recovery factor, where are the pressure sinks and the pressure sources, and trying to manage it on the fly. And at best, using Eclipse, the major tool for modeling, and that took a long time to mature and history match and start again. So the first thing you want to do in the view of these major challenges is to define the problem, and if you can, to show it. Show where the pressure sinks, map the field, show wherever what you think, where the faults are, where the fractures are, if there's any fractures, and after that, you say, why is it a problem? And what is the significance? Are we producing too much water? Water handling is the problem. Shortage of oil. No, it's not meeting the forecast. And you start looking at some solutions in order to reduce the operating cost on one hand and increase oil production on the other. And hopefully, with both in hand, you will maximize the recovery factor. And how do you go about that, solving this, meeting these challenges? The best approach, of course, is to find the root cause. You cannot just keep updating the reservoir model by changing some of the geological factor in order to achieve a history match, changing porosity, changing permeability, putting a fault here, putting a fracture there, and so on. So you have to have some data and to identify the reasons for premature breakthrough, or is it coning? So you start running well testing, running a fall-off test in the injectors, a pressure buildup in the producers, find out if there is any leak zones, run pressure surveys and the PLTs, and to identify if there's any thief zones. Is the water going where you really want it to go, or is it missing and in that particular field, I remember all the way up to 2010, we found some wells with 18 to 20 million barrels injected by 2010. And none of that water was going into the oil reservoir or to support pressure in that area. Faults were not anticipated in that area, and the heterogeneity of the reservoir was not allowing the distribution of water injection to go everywhere as expected, and not equally anyhow. So there were zones, some with the pressure depletion, and there were zones with breakthrough. So to evaluate the solution, what to do, how to combat, how to meet the challenge and maintain the production, the oil production, would it be to drill more producers, or to drill more injectors, or to balance the water injection by running PLT and finding which zone is taking water and which is not taking water? And that, in those days, collecting the data and analyzing the data and trying to endure for a long time, sometimes deferring production, reducing the rates, and simulate the scenarios that you can think in order to meet the challenge. The problem with that, it will take months, at least 2-3 weeks to run a full field model in remote area, and feeding the data in the afternoon, as we used to do, to Ponca City in Oklahoma, and wait for 2-3 weeks for the engineers to build the model and history match the model. And that, of course, while we still handling the water. Then run the sensitivities based on what you found from collecting the data, whether it's PLT, whether it's pressure surveys, fall-off surveys, and it's try to optimize your approach. And ultimately, you want to calculate the net present value from all these scenarios. And I want you to imagine the magnitude of that work and the challenge that you are running to be in terms of time and how many runs on a field like that. If it was so simple, and there are two ways to do that. Deterministic tool, you can measure, you can weigh it, you can calculate what you want. But unfortunately, it is not that simple. It is too complicated to measure and weigh. So you have to resort to modeling and simulation, which is the probabilistic, stochastic tools, and the running the modeling and simulating the data and simulating the field with the actual data that you have gathered, and running Monte Carlo and running sensitivity runs, running all sorts of scenarios, and trying to optimize the thing is, it is not straightforward, because you're not even dealing with Newton or Newtonian physics. You are dealing with non-Newtonian fluids, non-Newtonian physics, and non-Newtonian rocks, the petrophysics. They are not, one time we were going to lunch with some of the engineers in the cafeteria, and at the time it happened that the shuttle Discovery was the week that went into space, carrying the Hubble telescope. And I made a comment that it's fantastic. That's physics. That's what we call engineering and physics, and really impressive. And to which one of the reservoir engineers responded by saying, that's really nothing compared to what you do in reservoir engineering or petroleum engineering, where you are drilling from the surface. You go 5, 6, 7 kilometers under the ground. You don't see anything, and you hit the target within a meter or 3 meters, 5 to 10 feet, and you're not supposed to miss it. And nowadays, you go even beyond that. You run horizontal, 2 horizontal sections or multi-horizontal sections, and you go for another 1 or 2 kilometers. That is engineering and high physics. So that's where you have, now you have these challenges, and you will resort to the model and simulation. And this is not new. This is John von Neumann, the famous physicist and mathematician, who is the father of the rocket industry in the United States. He's originally Hungarian. And he said the sciences don't try to explain, they hardly even try to interpret. They mainly make models to describe correctly phenomena from a reasonably wide area of data. And that's why you want to collect the data. And modeling is not restricted to something just in oil industry. There are physical models like this one. This is actually, I saw it on eBay, the Boeing 737 simulator, $459,000. If you can get together, get one in the basement of your company and order pizza and try to simulate the Boeing 737. But that is a physical model, and there are some actual physical models for reservoirs now, especially in the fracturing the tight shales. They can build it and simulate that in the lab. And to answer that, to meet that challenge, we have come up with the PetroCup from NAFTA College, and this is the Mighty Mouse, and of course the Lone Ranger to the rescue. So what is the PetroCup? And it is really the best part of it is the virtual live feedback. You don't have to wait for weeks or maybe months, and you get your feedback from your scenarios, drilling, sidetracking, injecting more water, doing stimulation, all of that. You will get the results of these scenarios within hours. So it is the petroleum engineering tool. It is physics-based, and it is made possible now with the cloud technology. You don't have to buy disks. You don't have to own your Eclipse for a couple $100,000. And you use the actual data, whether input from your field or a field, and the output is really mathematically sound. And you do that. And this is basically in a nutshell. And you get the result. You get teams, either a field that you're having problems with that, you establish a team from multidisciplines, and you decide a weekend or take a couple of days away from the office and rig it up with the NAFTA group, and you can have 2-3 teams working on the same data, the same field, and compare. One will decide to drill more producers, the other one will balance the injection, the other one will sidetrack some wells. And it will be giving you within a day, within the hours actually, and how many scenarios you have, and compare quantitative, very realistic, and very fast. And that is really the backbone of the PetroCup. And so the applications that you can work with, the takeaway for engineers, for students, that you can use for college students who are taking, for example, they just 4th year senior in their petroleum engineering. They already covered the reservoir production, drilling, and petrophysics. So you get the team who are at the same page in experience and knowledge, and apply this data to evaluate a real field together. New engineers that they just out of college, and they can be supervised by an experienced engineer to evaluate and a certain water flood or tertiary recovery. It can be now, especially nowadays, different locations, whether the same company or different companies. You can actually use it in maybe SPE clubs for intellectual meeting instead of going golfing, for example. And with that practice and with that tool, you can evaluate the real data value, the data gathering. Is it worth gathering? Which one is important? Is it this stimulation, fracking, sidetracking, adding water, rearranging the injection from periphery, maybe line injector, maybe 5 spot pattern, 3 spot pattern, identify critical parameters, run sensitivities, find out where the money is going, where do you want it to go, and build some tornado charts, something like this. So this is the sensitive item on the top and less sensitive items on the bottom. You can decide where do you want to put your money when you have the information in your hand, and compare the different scenario. Which one is really most sensitive to that? And you can do it against NPV, against ultimate recovery, against operating cost, and all of these multi-variables will be available to you to, this is another picture, so you can see which one really get your attention and where do you want to spend your money. In conclusion, and what is the PetroCup, and how can you use it, and what's the takeaway? Now, with the team, and if you decide to team up, create 2-3 teams in your company, and pick a field, call NAFTA, and decide on the time and the place, and they will provide you, if you just want to do it for a training, NAFTA will provide you with the field data and give you the maps, give you what's available, the budget, even that you will be working against, and you run these scenarios and compare. And so the PetroCup is a powerful training tool for practicing engineers, students, professional clubs like SPE, and you can add your own usage. It's innovative tool that integrates the data from all disciplines to generate a scientifically sound strategy for asset optimization, from drilling, from site tracking, GNG, open hole logs, PLT, production logs, and finally, you run the economics in order to optimize your money. And last but not least, it is designed to be fast, reliable, and remotely accessible, like we're talking now, to allow multi-teams compete for the best approach or the best scenario. That is, in a nutshell. I hope you appreciate the tool with its accessibility and time, efficiency, cost, which we did not talk about it, but it's absolutely peanuts compared to probably 5 minutes of waiting time on the field that is underwater injection or deferred oil production. Thank you very much. Please submit any questions, and if I missed anything, please bring it up and we'll elaborate on that.
Thank you very much, Jamal. That was quite comprehensive. And we already have several questions in the chat. So let me read these questions for you. Question number one is, what is the main difference between conventional planning process and what you do with PetroCup? What would you put as the main difference?
The main difference to me is time and money. PetroCup will cut down because number one, it's a cloud. Number two, it's focused. And if your data is in your hand and you already paid for it, and you don't want to bother with that, PetroCup will allow you to do it in clouds and get you the results with your different scenarios and compare the ultimate NPV or the recovery factor. This is the really major difference, because both of them are using the same tool. Eventually, Eclipse, whether it's in the cloud or it's on the disk in the front of you, the time is the main thing, and the immediate feedback. And on the feedback, I wanted to bring that up because it's really a lot of people talk about it in the industry, whether it's end of the year performance appraisal or you're practicing something or another. Caldwell came up with that several years ago. Malcolm Caldwell, the writer who wrote Blink and Outliers and things like that, and he promoted the idea of 10,000 hours practice will get you there. Whatever, if you want to play piano, practice for 10,000 hours and it will be like Mozart. You want to be a reservoir engineer, do that, and you will be modeling in with your eyes closed. However, it was challenged almost immediately after it was published, and it was a bestseller on New York Times, that practice of 10,000 hours or 10 million hours will not get you there unless, that's the key, unless you have feedback. Because if you go shooting hoops on basketball, and for 7 hours, let's say you decide you want to put 500 hoops that morning, but if nobody's watching and you are not paying attention to where the ball is going and why it's going to the right, why are you missing to the left, and nobody is taking notes of that, you will keep doing that and you're not learning. So the key to the 10,000 hours, it's deliberate practice. That's what it's called. Deliberate practice with immediate feedback or little delayed feedback the next hour or so. That's why best players, they have coaches. Best teams, they have the best coaches, because they need the feedback and they need lining up the steering to where they miss and so on. And I have to share this with you because it comes up a lot. Used to say, get ready, aim, fire. Get ready, aim, fire. But now they switched that. Get ready, fire, aim. Because if you keep postponing when do you fire, when you put a product to the market, when do you do something, and you keep aiming, but you never fire, and it happens a lot, you waste time and you waste the market opportunity. So go ahead and get ready, fire, and see if you miss the target, to the right, to the left, above, below, and then you fix it and you keep going. So you learn from your faults and your mistakes immediately. And that's where the power of the practice. And this PetroCup will allow you to do that. Immediate feedback within hours, and it corrects you. Did your stimulation work? What didn't work? Is the water going in the wrong perforations? You fix that. You plug one, you abandon one, you perforate above, and so on. That's where the power of PetroCup compared to something else.
Thank you very much. I think that makes it very clear. We have another question referring to your experience. What do you think are the key factors in planning the waterflood project to make it success?
Yes, the main thing immediately comes to mind is the balance. So you know where the water is going. Is it going to the reservoir or not? So the key is good testing, good fall-off test to see the permeability, the rock properties, and make sure that the fluid in, the fluid out ratio is good and manageable and really true. And it will start showing up immediately after the first model runs. If you have to keep fiddling with the model in order to history match, there is something wrong. Either the water is not going where it's supposed to be, or there is a fault. So I strongly recommend spending some money on the finding out on the PLT, the production surveys, flow meter and noise log, and to find out really where and how much of it, quantify it, temperature, noise log, production, and the flow meter. If you can't get those combination, it will be money spent, very good money spent.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Eddie, I believe your additional question was probably covered when Jamal answered the first one. So let me pass to the next. Jamal, what do you see as a bottleneck in development planning?
It's lack of data. I think lack of data, because if you start guessing, you will be spending money in the wrong place. I would say the plan 80%, execute 20%. Get all your data together, but be judicious about it. Don't spend money unnecessarily. Make sure that every bullet, every dollar counts, and design it properly. Try to bracket it in sensitivity runs. As you can see with the NPV, with the tornado charts, it will help you to see if your money is well spent or not. It is very important to be selective, because your management is not going to give you an open check on that. So you get the right data and work with facts. Don't guess unless you absolutely have to. I think information, the value of information is very important. And nowadays, I mean, you can get for $100,000, you can get a suite of logs. You can run pressure surveys, interference testing, evaluate the heterogeneity of the reservoir to see what is if there's any thief zones, some fractures that are taking the water away or causing the water breakthrough. Data is very important. So it would allow you to work on facts rather than on humming and hawing around it.
Thank you so much. Another question, I think it's pretty technical. So the question is whether PetroCup uses a database or a flat file, and what about the security of data? I think, let me take this one for you, Jamal.
Okay.
The PetroCup is a complex solution, and it is a cloud-based solution consisting of both the database and the software. So yes, it is in the cloud. And about the security of data, so you see that when we perform the conventional PetroCup sessions for the purpose of education or training, then we would just use the synthetic assets. We have a whole library of them. But if you want to go through the field development planning process with your field, then we may prepare the model of your field to be used within the PetroCup engine. So in this case, of course, it would be crucially important to keep your data secure. And there's a whole bunch of solutions. So we may, for example, put it all in a cloud of your company. So anyway, if you're interested, I think we may elaborate on how to meet and comply with the regulation that you have in your company. Right. Another question for you, Mr. Jamal, is what is the recommended book or a website to learn petroleum engineering faster for non-petroleum engineer? What would you say for that?
Oh, there's a lot of, for non-petroleum. In fact, there are reservoir engineering for non-reservoir engineering, for non-engineers even, like the accountants, like the economists, like the safety people, like geologists who don't want to really mess with the reservoir engineering itself, the modeling or the petrophysics and so on, or geophysicists. I can come up with those, and my email is on the slides. Please send me, and in the meantime, I will find out. There are also courses, for 1 week courses, and you can attend with some of those courses. They are designed for non-petroleum engineers courses on reservoir and petroleum engineering, just to get to the highlight. Like how to drill a well, for example. How do you produce it? How do you inject CO2 or water? Where do you get the water from if you are not next to if you're not offshore, for example? But the best reservoir engineer that everybody uses almost worldwide is Kraft and Hawkins, and it's very, very clear. The equations are really, really high school, doesn't have extreme complexity in them. And it explains the reservoir very well. It's one of the oldest ones. Both Kraft and Hawkins already gone, but their work is still with us.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question. I think maybe partly I answered that, but the question is, can PetroCup approach be applied to the real non-synthetic field? So I think I gave a part of an answer.
What kind of field?
Any fields, I guess.
Any field.
Right.
Yes, the NAFTA College, they can run for training, they can run modeling for real field data or for example data from their library. But if you are interested, you have a field and you want some guidance, some help from NAFTA College, and definitely there will be an agreement, and they will build the model with you, and guide you through it step by step to the NPV, to the end result. I think that I'm speaking on behalf of NAFTA, and I believe this is true.
That's very true, absolutely. And the Jamal, the last question at the moment, which is, can we use the typical field, which is very much like our field in PetroCup? So I think if I rephrase the question is how various is the library of typical assets that you have for training in PetroCup?
I see. Okay, I think what the first experience that you will have as a user of PetroCup is when you sit with the team and start looking at the data and run the first what they call it, the shot one, or the first shot at it. You will start recognizing it. It will open your eyes immediately when it turns out that there's a well that you drilled and it missed the target, or it is not in the reservoir, or you run a PLT, you pay for the on the simulation or in the plan on the shot one, you run a PLT and you find that there is a thief zone, that all the injection is going out of zone. All of these, it will show you the value of cooperation between the team members. A geologist or a geophysicist will point out, aha, you are drilling a well where there's a fault, separating your injector from your producer. So stop that. And you will ask this, and how do you know it's sealing? And you said, I don't know. Well, maybe we should run a test, a pressure test, interference test between the injector and the producer. These kind of questions will be generated right after the first shot when you miss the target, or something failed, or production, you increase the water production instead of increasing the oil production. Now, if you say, if I want, this looks like similar to my field, you can use that approach, not necessarily the same numbers, the same approach, like, aha, I should have stimulated, I should have ran fall-off test, I should have checked if there is any sealing fault or no sealing fault. And by analog, you can tailor your actual field if using the lessons learned from the PetroCup practice. That is the most powerful thing I've learned when I first went through the exercise for over a couple of weekends. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yes. I think that is a good way to answer this particular question. And we have another one. So, Dr. Jamal, you mentioned that PetroCup was created for the team, but can a PetroCup be used by only one person, for example, a petrophysicist or well test engineer?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it will just take longer, and it will be heavy load. You have to really work hard for a longer period of time. You have to look at the sidetrack. You have to look at the petrophysics, the stimulation, the acidizing, the fracturing, the geophysics, the geology, and so on and so forth. It's doable, yes. Start with, let's say, 3 wells or 4 wells spot, if they are separate from the field, and you just want to practice that. Doable, sure. NAFTA will handle that for you.
Okay, I see. Thank you. So, Jamal, I think that the questions are over at the moment. So I think if anyone will come up with some questions later, then we may probably answer them offline on the NAFTA College website, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, and I invite all the attendees. This is my my address, my email. I welcome any questions, any remarks, any improvement that you may suggest that we could do for the presentation itself. Something that I did not say I should have said, something I said I shouldn't have said, I missed something, whatever. We need to continue improving our presentation, our work, our learning, and so on. There's no finish line in this business. There's always room for improvement.
That is very true. Thank you very much, Jamal. We have some thanks from our attendees. So I think that it's time to finish now. So
okay.
Again, thank you very much. It was definitely a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for your time, and appreciate the opportunity to share this with you, and hope to hear from you.
Yes, and I really hope to see you again as a NAFTA speaker on one of the following webinars.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vlad. Have a good day.
Okay, have a good day, everyone. Goodbye.